Welcome to another exciting episode of Langston's World. I am your host, the Great Beard of Knowledge, and it has been far too long. It's good to be back. So today we have an exciting, action-packed episode. Stop counting other people's money.
Get your hand out of my pocket! What you doing in my pocket, nigga?
Real talk, man. That's a real thing. Everybody likes to count everybody else's money. And it's the worst thing you can do because it's so misleading. Like, the information you get counting other people's money, A, isn't even accurate, and 2, isn't even actionable. You can't even do anything with the information when you count other people's money. So, get out of the Forbes list for a minute, have a seat, grab a cup of coffee or tea if you're like me, and let's get right into this game. Let's get into it. So, one of the ways that I see people really going crazy with this counting other people's money is comparing ourselves to other people. We always are looking at what the Joneses are doing next door. And you probably didn't even want a Benz until the Joneses got a Benz. And you spent your whole life comparing yourself to other people in your universe. And whenever they make a move, now you're motivated to make a move. That is a fleeting motivation. That's some weak ass motivation. If it took someone else doing something to trick you into doing something, chances are what you're doing probably isn't even in your own best interest. So get out of that. Stop chasing what everybody else is doing. Stop comparing yourself, because there's no quicker way to be frustrated, disappointed, and let down than trying to be someone you're not. And if you're trying to be like the Joneses or whoever else is in your universe, it's a recipe for disaster. So, be true to yourself. I'll give you a personal example. I was never really into skinny women, ever, at any point in my life. And, regardless of what is conventionally found to be attractive or traditional parameters of, ooh, you should like this, or miss me with that. So, I was never into that. And I know a lot of people who are unhappy right now. I'm not going to name names, right? Because, they're my friends and they're not ready to talk about it, obviously. But they are single only because they're worried about what other people are going to think about the women they date. It's the only reason they're single. They could be with somebody who they know makes them happy today, but they're miserable because they're not skinny enough, or they're not tall enough, or they're too dark, or they're too light, or they're the wrong race altogether. Like, you're really going to be unhappy for that? For really? So going back to counting other people's money, you may not have as much money as the guy next door. So what? Right? It was clearly not your primary objective to have that kind of bread. Maybe your objective was to be happy. Maybe you were happy with a 1-car attached garage. Now you see other people with all this other money and you're like, I deserve it, right? Because I'm smarter than they are. Or I work harder. Listen, keep your priorities straight. Don't be counting other people's money. And another thing you need to consider is that you just never know. You never know where that money came from, right? Now, I'm a conspiracy theorist, kind of, right? So, I watch the behind the music, and I watch my YouTube and whatnot. And people do some crazy things for this money out here, and you got to ask yourself, is it even worth it? There's a lot of people, they talk about these artists having to lose family members or people close to them, or they had to be sacrificed or whatever. I'm not saying it happens or it doesn't happen, but what I will say is it's not worth it for me to be in that space. If my podcast only reaches the select few people that I really rock with and the people who rock with me, I ain't pushing my mom down a flight of stairs so I can be famous, as they allude to Kanye having done. Nah, man, and Jennifer Hudson and a bunch of other, the list goes on. Not me, bro. Nope, I'm all set. I'm happy in obscurity before I go down that road. Oh, yeah. And you don't know, and staying with, you don't know where it came from or what happened. It could be blood money. It could be life insurance money. It could be money that was a payoff. True story, protecting identities once again. I know some people who, young women, well, they're not young anymore, but, when they were younger, they had a family member that did some foul stuff to them. And now that same family member gives them money, breaks them off from time to time. And people, there was like this jealousy thing, like, oh, why is he giving him, or why are they giving her money? And why are they? You don't know, bro. You don't know. Because when they were little girls, they were being taken advantage of. So now they're getting broken off. So don't count other people's money. It's totally unhealthy and it's counterproductive.
Get your hand out of my pocket!
And, as we get into the jewels component of this show, I'm going to really break down why you don't need to be doing that, why it's really not in your own best interest. And the next time you catch yourself counting other people's money, I'm going to break down some ways to not only counter that, but be constructive with what you do afterwards, after you find yourself trying to count other people's money and make these comparisons. And now, your host of In the News, Great Bit of Knowledge. And I'm just giving you the facts, right? I know there's a lot of different outlets you can go to for the fake news, the news that's sponsored by the advertisers who keep these programs on the air, CNN and Fox, I'm looking at you, who spend more time reporting on what the other one is doing than the actual events. There's alternative facts, people who have an agenda to push, whether it's conspiracy theory or otherwise. I'm just giving you straight facts because I got nothing to gain other than trying to make sure that we're all as a people on the same page with the right actionable information. And this brings us to the coronavirus. Let's get the facts on the coronavirus because there's a lot of stuff going around. Like the other day I was talking to somebody and they were like, oh, this is an Initiative 2030. They trying to depopulate the earth and Bill Gates invented this. If you download the new Windows operating system, you gonna get the coronavirus. Like, come on, man. And then I got some people talking about, oh, it's the coronavirus. They putting it in the cervezas to keep the Mexicans out. Like, let's get the facts, all right? The fact of the matter is the coronavirus ain't really all that new, right? It's been around for decades in one form or another. This is the remix, right? Came out of Wuhan province in China, not to be confused with the Wu-Tang province of China, where RIP ODB, where some of the best music in the world came from. Wuhan province of China is where it started. It started off because of the close proximity between the people and the animals at a particular market. It jumped the tracks, got introduced to the human population, mutated, and was able to be spread person to person, period. It ain't crazy, although some conspiracy theorists would have you believe Donald Trump was over there with the monkeys in the market trying to spread the coronavirus for the upcoming trade tariff war that we're going through or whatever. Like, whether that's true or not, we got to deal with the coronavirus. And the coronavirus can't even be spread through your skin, but is spread person to person. So there are some do's and don'ts with this upcoming flu season. First of all, it's not all that different than the regular flu, a more severe form of it, right? And what you have to appreciate is, just like the regular flu, there are people in our society that are going to be more vulnerable than other people. Who's most vulnerable? Elderly and infants, right? So if you're, my age, you're between 20 and 50, you probably got a good chance, if your immune system isn't compromised, to beat this sucker back. However, there are things you can do. Now, there are a lot of recommendations. The people are going out. Everybody I see are buying these masks, that you put over your face and whatnot. They ain't gonna do squat. All right, that's real talk. Save your money, y'all, because those aren't the masks. What y'all need are the N95 Granddaddy Air Force. What is it? The original gangster, okay, of these masks. The N95, they look like Sub-Zero Mortal Kombat masks. They got little respirators on them. If you're going to spend the money, spend it correctly. Get the real stuff. You don't want to be sick with a mask on because you tried to skimp out. So that's what the medical professionals are recommending. I'm going to order mine for me and my little Sugarfoot so that we are all masked up. I don't know about what Future was talking about, but it's mask on in this part of the world. I only took my joint off to do this episode. And if I can't get my mask in time or I get caught out without it, I'm going to just pull my beard up because this is not something you want, this coronavirus, because it's special. Now, coronavirus got its name. I'm giving you all this scoop, so it's actionable. You get it. The coronavirus was named because of the way it looks under the microscope. It's got these little crown things on it. Now, the crowns on the coronavirus are special. Each coronavirus has a different kind of crown key type thing that connects with your body in different places. This one connects with your lungs. So that's why the symptoms include shortness of breath, coughing, and all that other stuff. And what makes it worse, I'm going to give you the real deal. This sucks, okay? What makes it worse is that the symptoms are relatively mild, right? So you could get the coronavirus, think it's just a little cold or whatever, and the symptoms aren't severe enough for you to really, think you are coming down with Ebola or anything, which allows you to spread it longer, right? So it's going to spread, and that's why people are really terrified, because the symptoms aren't like, Ebola or some made up virus on one of these end of the world apocalyptic movies, but they will affect and infect a lot of people. So one of the things that medical professionals are urging is that if you're going to the hospital or urgent care, you have some reason to believe you have the coronavirus, call ahead, right? Don't just be infecting random people on the way. Call ahead. They'll give you some instructions where to come in, where to check in, so you don't just unnecessarily spread this thing. Second, don't be selfish, man. Like, if you're sick, stay your ass at home. Don't be bringing that around for everybody, all right? If you're sick, stay home. That is the most selfish thing you can do. I have a sister-in-law who does that. I'm not going to say her name, but she loves to parade her kids around when they're sick and come around and be all up in people's faces and stuff. Even though she's sick, woo, nothing grinds my gears more than that. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Quick note about the symptoms. The symptoms are shortness of breath, runny nose, fever, sore throat, chills, dizziness, pretty much everything you'd have with a regular flu. Regardless of what the conspiracy theorists say, the consequences are real. The economies all over the world are reeling in preparation for people to be traveling less. Saudi Arabia is talking about cutting back the number of barrels they produce a day, down 500,000 to potentially 1 million barrels. So the economic effects are real. Regardless of whether you're a conspiracy theorist or not, this is going to have far-reaching ramifications economically across the globe. But as far as the people listening, the people that I love and who love me, don't touch your face. You go out here in these streets and you moving around, you doing this and that. It can't spread through your skin. So wash your hands frequently. Don't get these weak ass masks, because it's just going to provide a false sense of security. If you're going to get the mask, get the real mask. They got even washable, rewashable masks that you can get. The N95 is the way you want to go. Stay away from sick people. And if you are sick already, just do a little self-quarantine. Don't be out here spreading it unnecessarily. But that is in the news section covering the coronavirus. Now let's get into these jewels for this episode. Now, I know after talking about the coronavirus, the last thing you want to talk about is counting other people's money, but chances are, fingers crossed, this thing chills out, and 6 months from now we'll be talking about it like, oh, it was just like the SARS, except it's the corona thing, and it's just another remix of the same fake news, get everybody to tune in and freak everybody out, CNN, Fox advertising tactics. Hopefully that's all it is, and then we can get back to this paper. Stop counting other people's money, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to get into these jewels as to why that's so important, right? When you're counting other people's money, it prevents you from focusing on the things that matter most to you, right? So instead of being happy with what you do have and happy with the progress you are making, it just throws you into this rabbit hole. So the best thing you can do to avoid going down the rabbit hole is really clearly identifying what it is that you actually want, so you don't get sidetracked. It's like going to the store with my little sugar lumpkins. When I go to the store with my girl, it's the worst, because she has no idea what she really wants. So whenever she sees something she thinks she wants, we in there even longer. And that's why every trip to Walmart sends me to the poorhouse, because we just end up going home with damn near everything. And her mother has the same condition. It's hereditary. Make sure, but you aren't your genes, okay? You are not your genes. So you can beat this. If you're listening, Sugarfoot, you can beat this. You don't have to just be buying random stuff. Same with counting other people's money. If your goal wasn't to be a billionaire, then why are you trying to be Jay-Z all of a sudden? You know what I'm saying? Zero in on what really is going to make you happy. Maybe you don't need $1 billion to be happy. Maybe, just maybe, you could be happy with less than $1 billion. So until you really outline what it is that you want and need in terms of finances to be happy, you're going to be counting other people's money unnecessarily. right? And once you figure out what you need and what will actually make you happy, now you can celebrate the victories and successes of other people to keep you from hating. Because that hate pandemic is serious too. That's a serious. I wish there was a vaccine for that. Second, everyone is different. Okay? Everyone is different. So, what might have made your friend wealthy or your uncle or your dad, like my dad is a very special case. He's a very special man. He found success in a way that most people try to emulate and end up not doing so well. Okay, I joke with my dad because he be telling people to go out here and do things that are the equivalent to grabbing a rhinoceros by the horn and trying to pull the horn off. That's unrealistic. Not everybody's gonna be Crocodile Dundee. You can't just go out here, clap your hands, and make it rain. My dad is the rain man. He can really just go outside and change the weather. He's just that charismatic. He's got that kind of personality and sales ability. I don't have that. So it took a long time for me going outside and doing the rain dance until my kneecaps fell off before I realized that I had to go my own way to create wealth for myself. So, with that said, no two people are the same. So when you measure what you should do next, or you're measuring activity and you just go to look at the most successful financially, the most successful person from a financial standpoint, don't just go out and emulate what they're doing. That's a recipe for disaster. Do not do it. Stop it. Right? Do not do that. Don't do it. Just chill out. Figure out what you need to do, create a plan, and execute it. Now, that doesn't mean ignore what other people have found success doing. Just analyze it and figure out if it's going to be a good fit for you. I know there's a lot of people out there trying to make money doing things that they're not comfortable with, or that don't resonate with them, or they're trying something just to try it. Trying new things is great, but don't be married to it because it made your neighbor rich. Okay, your neighbor might have done some things that you don't know about, which brings us to the third jewel. Focus on the systems, not the results. And this is important because the systems are what's going to deliver wealth for years to come. The systems are going to create generational wealth for you. What makes you think that you should be able to graduate to being wealthy without paying that tuition? That tuition is paid for in the form of you falling on your face, right? And having to suffer the consequences of trial and error, right? It's just how it is. What makes you think you're exempt from having to pay that tuition? Some people get a scholarship. Some people early on in life, they're savant, they're very skilled, they're very talented, boom, and they burst onto the scene, they're tremendously successful. That's not most of us. So pay that tuition and pay it gladly, knowing that it's the lesson that you're learning, which is going to allow you to be wealthy and successful for many, many, many years into the future. Once you only have to figure it out one time. That's all it takes. And while we're in these jewels, I want to jump into the fourth one, which, has to do with the fact that people aren't very transparent about where their money comes from. Everybody wants to make it look easy, or they want you to believe that they didn't really have to work for things. And I'm going to use Drake as an example. So everybody that was out there doing exactly what they thought Drake did to get to where he was are going to be lost in the sauce, because all they were focused on were the results. They have no real appreciation for the reality of who Drake really was, which was an actor.
Jimmy. Yo, Jimmy.
He was an actor. He made a bunch of inside connections by being in that world early on in life, connections that he leveraged combined with work ethic and talent. But there's an underlying component to that. Unlike other artists who came up rough, like Meek, who just had to beat all the odds and still failed to beat some of the odds to get to where he was, Drake took a very different path. Understand, people aren't always transparent about where they came from. Okay? Look at the founding fathers. A lot of people think that all of this white privilege was financed through nobility and fighting for freedom and being forthright and square dealing, when in reality, this country we call America was only made possible by killing off the indigenous population and passing out and starting our own pandemics of smallpox to wipe out the natives because they couldn't fight them square. They couldn't fight them square up. So we punked up and took all these other very nefarious, evil, wicked methodologies to found this nation. So, pump your brakes. You don't know where it came from. And making that comparison, getting back to the money, of how other people got their money and how you got your money, stop, man. Chill out. Be cool. Find your own way. Stop counting other people's money because it's only going to take you off center. It's only going to make it harder for you to be successful in the long run when you're just copying what other people want you to believe that they did. They're not really taking you to the lab and going, here's the secret formula. They're like, ooh, I'm just so smart and talented. I've an overnight success after 10 years, like, come on, man. 10 years of trying. So stop trying to mimic everybody's stuff. Your journey is going to be your journey and just embrace that. Okay, just embrace that. So this next section. So on to the next segment. Before you quit your job.
Tomorrow I'm calling in dead. Job for me stand for Jesus. I'm on my breaking point.
It's one of my favorite segments. I love having this conversation because all I do is hang out with people leaving the plantation. So this will be like our leaving the plantation segment here. Before you quit your job. Before you quit your job, consult with the Joint Chiefs of your universe. All right. Consult your tribe because that tribe is going to give you phenomenal insight into whether or not you need to be quitting your job. You might have 3 kids. You might be currently working on a button factory and your income is the only income separating your family from being on Skid Row and or your family continuing to be able to eat and keep the lights on and keep a roof over your head. And it's possible. It's possible. You may have come across a $1 billion idea, right? And you would be foolish not to pursue it. But it also may be the recipe that's going to have your family under the greatest financial stress they've ever experienced in their lives. Consult your Joint Chiefs because they're going to give you some great feedback. They're going to give you some insight. And that insight is going to do a couple things. One is going to be a nice little reality check. You might be like, I want to innovate a new way to drive to work, and it's called the blindfolded method, and if you close your eyes and use the force, you'll get to work 5 minutes faster than you normally would. And I've got a whole training manual. Whoa, let me stop you right there. That's a horrible idea. You need that sometimes. You need people in your universe to check your crazy, horrible ideas. Consult your tribe. Vice versa, right? On the flip side, you might be sitting in your Joint Chief meeting with everybody and somebody might go, I tried to start a business last year. Let me save you some time. Have you done X, Y, and Z? Did you already consult a financial planner? Did you already talk to a business consultant? Have you talked to this person? They're doing what you're doing. Have you secured lending? Have you started writing the business plan? And this is going to save you valuable time because every day off the plantation costs money, right? And when you run out of money, guess what? Next stop, Candyland. Your ass is going back to the plantation when you run out of bread. So talk to your Joint Chiefs because they're going to save you a ton of pain and frustration and anguish. All right. So that is the before you leave your job segment. And the last segment before we jump into the closing is the financial freedom trail. Not just any freedom trail, but the financial freedom trail. And this particular segment today is going to be focusing on why we don't have anything, right? And this was inspired by a conversation I had yesterday with a dear, dear family friend of mine. And she told me that people of color don't have anything because of how they spend their money. And then went on to really get detailed. I wasn't going to say anything, but pushed all my little buttons and I had to respond because I like to let people live in their little world. I don't like to always shake people out of their ignorance. Sometimes it's easier for both of us for me to just let you rock. But she really hit that perfect combination of buttons that made me turn into the great beard of knowledge. And she hit me with, People in the project spend all this money on outfits, on shoes, and they spend their money like this and like this and like that, and they do this, and that's why they're poor, and that's why the rich people are rich.
Shut the fuck, shut. Did I say, no? Oh, shit. Say it again. Say something else. Oh, say something else. Say something else, nigga.
I had to really break it down, just like I'm going to break it down for you. Now, let's say you're not rich and you're experiencing a certain level of financial instability. You're not where you want to be. Your cash flow ain't shaking out the way you want it to. At the end of every month, it seems like you're just making ends meet. You will not be rich by going to Savers, by going to Save a Lot, buying your bread 2 days old, wearing your clothes until you have holes in them. The money you're saving is not going to make you a millionaire. You can scrape all those pennies together that you're saving, every last little nickel, dime, quarter, dollar that you can find, and it's not going to add up to make you a millionaire. All right, that's not the difference between rich people and poor people. There ain't enough change in your couch to add up to being a millionaire. You know what makes millionaires millionaires? Life insurance. Okay, I know it's unpopular because nobody wants to talk about dying, but life insurance is a game changer. You take all those little coins that you saved up by wearing your clothes 2 years too long and you buy some life insurance, I guarantee you take that saved money and you're healthy enough to get it and you're young enough to afford it and you got the money to afford it, your kids will be millionaires. Problem solved, right? That's what you don't see. That's what you don't see. Culturally speaking, people of color don't buy life insurance. And there's a reason for it. There was a period of time when black people would buy life insurance. If you watch Malcolm X by Spike Lee, they claim that Malcolm's dad was the product of suicide. And they refused to pay the claim. That happened a lot. There was a lot of illegal, illegitimate activity going on back in the day, back in the days of Jim Crow, right? Now we're in a new day. We haven't broken away from those same habits and philosophies and approaches that keep us broke and keep us in a position where financial security and financial freedom and wealth is still very elusive for us. It's not because we like nice things, right? If you live in a society where you're constantly marginalized, put down, made to feel less than, you're going to buy some nice clothes. You're going to buy some things to signify to the world that you have value. It's psychological, okay? It's deeper than dollars and cents. So I don't want to hear any more talk about if black people just bought fewer Jordans and they bought more of this and they saved their money. No. Okay, it's way more than that. It's way more than that. Every episode, there's going to be some financial freedom trail dialogue because the more you know, right? Let's put all the game out there we can find. And if you have some ideas for financial freedom or you felt like you had some more suggestions for how we can avoid counting other people's money, other than just focusing on what we want individually, what we really want, instead of being distracted by the success of others, please drop me a line. This is going to be on a lot of platforms, but if you really want to get a hold of me, DM me, right? And with that said, I'm going to bring this episode to a close. I want to shout out an author, Charla Rain. She is a phenomenal writer. And if Black Panther was written by a black person and not two cool white guys, Jack Kirby and Stan Lee did a great job with the Black Panther property. But if you were going to read Black Panther as written by black people, the story of Tucana is what you're going to want to read. So I hope I've sparked your interest. The book is actually being released late February. So I'm going to include a link so you can check her out. But kudos to her. I read the first chapter. I was on the edge of my seat. It's completely immersive in how it's written. So definitely check that out. We got to support black-owned businesses, black narratives, and in this case, black authors. But with all that said, with no further ado, I'm going to bring this episode to a close. This is the Great Beard of Knowledge, signing off.